going to make this one quick because I have an eye doctor's appointment that I need to get to in like an hour. No! I recently watched the new Scott Pilgrim anime show, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. After rewatching Scott Pilgrim vs. the World to fully appreciate Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I love the story. Even though Scott Pilgrim's a dick, Scott Pilgrim was created in 2004 by Brian Lee O'Malley, and it started off as a graphic novel series that was then adapted into the live-action movie. Book to film adaptation is flawless. All in all, the style matches the graphic novel. It's a good adaptation of the original source material. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is a brand new take on the first story, the ones that are culminated in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which is Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, and then the second book, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Spoiler warning, if you haven't seen it, please go watch the first movie and then watch Takes Off on Netflix. If you haven't already, this is your one and only warning. And if you decide to watch after that, then
your mom's a hoe.
They have all of the returning actors who played in the original Scott Pilgrim vs. the World movie. They came back to voice the characters in the anime. So the story goes on how it did in the first movie, except when the first X shows up, Scott loses. Scott's missing. Everyone thinks he's dead. And Ramona goes on a search to know if Scott's actually dead or if he's just missing. So she ends up interviewing all of the X's, and we kind of get a deeper look into the X's, basically how they think that they're actually real characters and not just people for Scott to beat up. I like that a lot because they just seemed like grunts when I watched the movie, but now they actually feel like full-on characters. And it's kind of funny that when Scott comes back, and by the way, he got kidnapped by his future self because him and Ramona got divorced. Perfect. When Scott comes back and tries to fight the other exes, he finds them not wanting to fight him for Ramona because in Scott Pilgrim's absence, they became better people overall. And they decided to go out, pursue their own lives, and kind of have closure with Ramona and want to set out on their own journeys. And Scott doesn't have to fight any of them, but instead has to fight his future self from way, way, way to the future because him and Ramona didn't work out. And then it's everyone in the story versus Scott Pilgrim, the old version from the future. I thought it was a pretty cool way they did this. It's a brand new story. It really turned it on its head. And I think that this show complements the movie very, very well. I think these should be watched in sequence. You watch Scott Pilgrim vs. the World first, and then you watch Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. And if you really want to, you can read the books. If you actually want to get the source material and you actually want to know the adventures that Scott has after Precious Little Life and versus the World, I'd give those books a read if you want more Scott Pilgrim. I know I do. Thank you. If you like this video and you like Scott Pilgrim, smash that like button and please subscribe if you want to have another movie review like this. Thank you for watching and good night.